Good evening, everybody. My name is Ronan Wiseman. I'm the Technical Director for Long Island Junior Soccer League. I want to welcome you all to tonight's webinar. I hope everybody is doing well and staying healthy during these challenging times. Tonight, I want to introduce you to John Fitzgerald. John is the Long Island Junior Soccer League Coaching Academy Director, and John will introduce all of us to tonight's special presenters. Hi, John.
Hey, Ronan. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, welcome everybody. As Ronan said, I'm the director for our coaching academy. Very happy to do so. Long Island Junior Soccer League is one of the largest youth soccer leagues in the country. Is partnered with United Soccer Coaches, which is the largest coaching organization in the world. As coaches associated with Long Island Junior Soccer League, we all benefit from this long-standing relationship with United Soccer Coaches. Our coaching academy, as many of you know, undoubtedly, that you already know, delivers coaching education courses that are modeled after the United Soccer Coaches curriculum. As well as your director, I'm also the United Soccer Coaches State Director and one of their national staff instructors. Feel free to reach out to me if any of you would like to host a course within your club or find out more about it. You can find my information on the league's website. So today we have the two top education instructors from United Soccer Coaches as our presenters. Ian Barker is the Director of Coaching Education, and Vince Gansberg is the Education Content Coordinator. Both of these gentlemen have been to our convention and have delivered courses here on Long Island. I can personally tell you they like our soccer, they like our bagels, and they like our beer. We should all be very aware that they are the top education gurus of United Soccer Coaches, and they are here with us tonight as part of the powerful and robust relationship Long Island Junior Soccer League has with United Soccer Coaches. So Ian and Vince, thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight, and welcome.
Thank you very much for having us. It looks like a great crowd, and I will say that my first experience of going to Texas was that I felt that Texas was its own part of the world. It wasn't part of the United States, and that was a feeling I held until I came to Long Island Junior Soccer League for the first time and spent time with John and Ronan and the staff, and how LIJSL is its own absolutely unique entity. And it's a privilege to come out and visit with you guys, and it's a privilege to work with John and the staff, and I'm really glad to be here tonight for hopefully about an hour of your time. So looking forward to it.
Yep, just want to say thank you, John and Ronan, for having us on, and Steve for setting this up for us. And I hope everyone on this webinar is safe and well, and as we get through these times. But hopefully tonight we'll take your minds off of it for a little bit. Yeah, hopefully give you some ideas.
So Vince and I thought we'd be a little bit brave, because Vince has an excellent slide deck for you, but we thought we'd try and use an interactive tool that we've been using with players. So if any of you on the call are teachers, this will be common to you, but we'll try something a little bit here. So if you're in the audience at home, and you can find on your phone this word kahoot.it. See if you can do that. And then if you can find that on your phone, assuming my screen is nicely shared, you can type in that number, and then you can write in your name, and you'll be able to play this interactive game with us. Scott, brilliant, well done. So I'll give a few of you a chance to get in here. Some of you clearly have done a Kahoot before. This one we popped up just today because John Fitzgerald said that he'd been using it with his players, and so we thought we'd share it with you guys. So it's very appreciative that some of you are going to have a look at this. And while we're letting people log in, for those of you that are not familiar with this particular tool, and there are many others, Socrative is another one. This is a completely free program. So you can create the content at no cost and then share it with your players if you're still in the completely isolated world. And then there are upgrades to different things like polls and jigsaws and all kinds of things. But this is the free version, and we're just going to give you a quick example. So I'll wait. There you go. Good. All right. So here's how it works. You'll have 10 seconds to respond, and the answer, you hit the answer, you respond by looking at your iPhone. So you will punch your iPhone with the answer that you like. And if you answer quickly, correctly, you get a lot more points. If you answer correctly but take some time, you get less points. So let's see if I can get it to work, hopefully. And if you didn't quite get in, you'll, oh, there's Kika. That's probably one of my friends, Kika there. Okay, here we go. So you got to tell me, look at your iPhone when you're ready to answer. So you'll see options on the screen. Who's that? There you go. Look at your iPhones and hit red or blue. Okay, very good. And so what it can tell us is who responded correctly the quickest. So I'll go through 5 of these. Maybe we'll do them all real quick. It's a nice little icebreaker to get the evening going. And maybe you guys really want to know who's the quickest to the draw. There you go. So I used this recently with a group of ODP players who I'd only just got to meet. And it was a nice icebreaker for the kids to get to know each other because they were from different places and for me to get to know them. And you can appreciate we're whistling through this because we have limited time tonight. But if you had more time, you get the players online. If you're in a Zoom space, there's a lot of different interactions you can do here. The cream is rising to the top. You can see we've got just 5 more to answer. So aha, some of these are getting more challenging for some of you. Dest is the young Ajax player and Netherlands youth international who just committed to playing for the US. So that's a good one. So well done, everybody there. Alex is holding his ground. I think Alex is just really quick with the pushing of the buttons. Very good. No change at the top of the leaderboard. Very good, Rick. Well done, Coach Schneider.
Oh, the superintendent.
And then one of the things we can do is we can ask you to rate the quiz. So you can hit smiley face or stars and things like that. And if you can see my screen on the right here where it says view report, I can go in and identify if this was something a little bit more serious, which questions got a lot of correct answers, which ones got a lot of wrong answers, or if there was one or two people struggling. So I wouldn't have to necessarily fix everybody, but maybe go and help a student that was struggling. So a really nice little interactive game called Kahoots, one of the many, many tools that Vince and I use regularly. So we've got a gentleman, Peyton, working behind the scenes who is generating Zoom for us. So Peyton, you can take control of the screen back now if you'd like to. And give control over to Vince, I believe.
Okay, can everybody see my slide deck, I think? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, and then I can see my red arrow is in view. So, Ian and I, when we were talking about the presentation and conferring with John, we talked about, well, maybe we discuss a little bit about, you know, what the coaching world, what your world as coaches look like now, and what's it going to look like in the future. And so we're just going to offer some ideas. And this deck, by the way, is one of the handouts. And then there's also another handout, I think, that they're going to share with everybody. So, Coach Barker, you ready to go?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So, oops, sorry. So basically, you know, if you have a team, they're thinking about, you need to kind of consider where they're at. So right now, they might be feeling isolated, zoomed out. They might be bored, missing their teammates, anxiety, a lot of other things, you know, and they're going through, a lot of them just finished school online, which is a completely different world for them. And so this whole new world all of a sudden was just forced on them, and everything shut down. And they really had, you know, no one, including coaches, knew how to figure it out. But we did. And through technology, you know, we're starting to figure it out. So if your players, for example, are feeling isolated, you know, and one thing to do is what Coach Barker did is he did a Kahoot with you, and you can do a Kahoot and just get like a poll on, like, for example, how they're feeling. But if they're feeling isolated, really encourage them to create new routines, get plenty of sleep, practice mindfulness, and remind them that physical distancing is, you know, isn't the same as social distancing, right? So I heard someone named Amy Griffin, she's a coach out in Washington State. She said, we really should call it physical distancing because we don't want to ever socially distance. So I think just the ability to kind of reach out and make them feel like, you know, hey, we're all in this together. A lot of them, though, they're zoomed out. I moonlight for a club here in Indianapolis, and I can, you know, I've done 3 or 4 with the kids, and I can tell you that each one is, I just see their body language. So I recommended to our director of coaching, I just said, you know, I think we got to shorten them, you know, because they were planning them for 45 minutes. So we started going 30 minutes, and it's been a little bit better. But so using Kahoots to engage them, have a theme. And for those that don't know, Ian and I run 2 webinars a day called Match Day. And one coach that was presenting said that during their Zoom, they actually did like a May the 4th be with you theme. And so they all dressed up like Star Wars characters, right? You can do quizzes. Dave Schneider introduced me to Mentimeter. So I did a Mentimeter with the kids virtually, where basically they can type in, you know, their thoughts or whatever, and it can create like a word cloud. You can get into things like goal setting and all that. And one thing that I heard yesterday was, I was listening to John O'Sullivan, and he said that he was on with a group of kids in his club, and they had a anti-talent night. So basically he said, all right, so you have 2 weeks to learn something that you've never learned before, you've never done before, and you're going to present it in 2 weeks on Zoom. And he said, for example, he said that I never really learned how to juggle a ball, like with my hands, not my feet and body, but just my hands, taking 3 balls and juggling with their hands. So I learned that. Some kids played, some chords on the guitar. So it's almost, doesn't always have to be soccer, I think is my point. Some kids might be feeling bored, right? So can they get creative with the routines? I put on there, go back to the 80s, right? So get out and play, uh, you know, use a ball on a wall. They might be missing their teammates. So one tech tool is called Flipgrid, and it's free. If you type in flipgrid.com, and basically it's like a coach can set up almost like an Instagram type thing where she or he can talk in their phones, send it out to their team, and then their teams, the kids on the other end, they kind of send a video back to the coach, and everyone can kind of connect that way. So it's a really neat little tool. And anxiety, and so we just got to reassure them. And I put breathe like a Jedi. That goes in with like mindfulness. I'm a Star Wars geek, so Yoda actually was teaching us right when we learned mindfulness. In other words, just breathe, center yourself, and just relax. So, Coach Parker, anything you want to add?
Yeah, just real quick to add to that. As Vince said, we've been doing these pop-up webinars, 2 a day. They're called Match Day. They're all recorded. So there's about 100 of them recorded, and you're welcome to join us live. And they go 15 to 30 minutes. We had a sports psychologist on who had been a Division I college head coach, and then had gone to work with the Army Rangers and jump out of helicopters with them in North Carolina and observe them in psychological stressful conditions. And he's currently a sports psychologist with the Toronto Blue Jays. So he's good resume. And he boiled it down to this. Now, this would apply if you're completely isolated right now and still in full lockdown, and certainly if you're easing back out to competition. Essentially, in a very crude explanation, we can look at this as a threat situation or a challenge situation. And every athlete that you've got and parent and coach in your club has a different response, but they fall into 2 very big, broad buckets. One is the world is over, I'm scared, I'm anxious, very legitimate feelings. Or there is this is a new reality or a new challenge, and how can I overcome it? And Vince and I are very passionate in the belief that you as coaches, you may be teachers, you may be psychologists, you may be law enforcement people, but right now you're a youth coach. And so our challenge to all of us is to see if we can help those kids find this as a challenge opportunity as opposed to a threat assessment, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I forgot about Ben. One thing I forgot too, another alternative could be a program called VoiceThread, and it's free. And basically, it's a little interactive tool where kids can record videos, and you can give them like a scenario. Maybe if there's time at the end, I can show it if coaches want me to. So let's move on. So a lot of what I'm going to present next, I pretty much took from the Aspen Institute, who just recently published, actually I think it was last week, published kind of return to play protocols. But in their document, there's a little section that says call for coaches, right? So now it's more important than ever that we really stay connected with our players, so they're social and emotionally with us. So just some tips. Do you know every athlete's story? And I think this is a really good time that you can get to know them. I think sometimes as club coaches, we got maybe 2 or 3 practices a week, and some of us coach 2 or 3 teams. It's tough to learn everybody, right? And and every kid's a limited edition, everyone, and they all have their own story. So see if you can learn them, and support a team culture, be a role model, and show them what washing hands means, and just focus on, for example, the skills that matter, which right now are life skills. So, Coach Parker?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, all of this slide talks about an expression of care, which is an essential part of us helping these kids with being motivated. So this is really just an appeal to express care about them. And we
Yeah.
may be doing it in a very challenging environment, but from my perspective, we don't need to remind them that COVID is happening, and we don't need to remind them that the world is different. We can remind them about soccer and teammates, and we are there to support them. So again, for me, a big expression of care.
Yeah, and the other day, Ian and I were on a webinar with a Division I women's college coach, and she said that she sent out postcards to all of her players. And she said her kids were so excited. So just it doesn't always have to be through technology, and there's different ways that you can connect. So I'm not going to go through all this, but if you do a virtual meeting, here are some tips. And just it's almost like a routine, right? So how do you communicate? Allow them to opt in. Maybe they're zoomed out. Maybe they've been through a whole day of lessons at school, and they're tired. Plan your meetings, so just like a practice, you want to come in with a game plan, and probably though with technology, you need to have plan B and C, very similar to what you have in the field. The third checkpoint, see if you can incorporate some activity like a Kahoot, or it could be just a fun team dialogue. I think the sports psychologist that Ian referenced earlier, he said one of the things that he said is, all right, look on everybody's screen and identify one unique thing from their screen and put it in the chat box. And he said that just got him engaged. Just again, be a role model, give them, and this is really huge, because players will buy in what they help create. And maybe we give them the opportunity to pick or suggest for the next activity, for the next meeting. I know some parents are paying big bucks, but really modern coaching today is giving players the opportunity to suggest a meeting. Coach Barker, feel free to add in if you want.
Yeah, I just, on that one, the last one there about choice,
Yep.
The very last on the planning of your meetings. Again, This is all part of this self-determination theory that Vince and I believe in strongly, that if you care about them, you give them choice, and that you can help them improve their abilities, these 3 C's, care, competence, and choice, you get pretty motivated athletes. And so all of this is part of our normal coaching direction, and it's even more applicable now in a challenging situation.
Yes. Yep. After the meeting, right? Try to just give them little assignments. Voice threads are really good. Have them do a voice thread. Give them some resources. I've created apps through a program called Glide Apps, which uses Google Docs. Again, it's free. And you can actually, if you're a Google Doc guru, you can put a whole bunch of Google Docs together, and you can literally go onto what's called Glide Apps, and you can make your own app. And it's free. It doesn't sit on iTunes. It's just simply a link you can send out to your kids. And then, just like every other coaching session you do, you should always reflect, right? You should always go back and reflect. What could I have done better? And then this little part here, the ongoing part, like reinforce the norms, the rules. Like, for example, you all have hopefully you'll have, your mics on mute. Just, establish a code of conduct. That's obviously through the chat box and obviously texting other people, but just, being cognizant of your own perspective. So, Coach Barker, feel free.
Yeah, and just a lot of content here from Vince and myself, and I think this is being recorded, but this entire deck is available to you on the handout tab on the control panel. So you don't need to write it down. You can download this entire presentation. So it's there on the handout tab.
Okay, so some of us, I know in New York, you're not quite as far as where I am, and I live in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we are actually returning to play. the clubs are starting tryouts, and yeah, it's kind of shocking, to be honest with you. But we're starting to return to play. So with that, we need to consider, well, some have been isolated for a long time, even though we tell them, hey, go out and do some juggling, and hey, here's some homework for you, or here's something for you to do to get better. They're still not going to be quite ready. It's going to be quite a shock. So, but from a safety perspective, these are the CDC recommendations. Again, this was a webinar, actually, I think 10 days ago or close to that. But right now, they're recommending that coaches, wear a cloth face, and just, make sure that you clean the surfaces, including the balls. Stay at home if you're sick. Try and do whatever you can to physical distance. And a lot of us, I'm going to show you some activities to consider as you start returning to play. But Coach Barker, anything you want to add to this?
No, I think we've talked about it before on the webinars, but imagine if you're coaching the 5 and 6 year olds, right? So what physical distancing looks like, and how long can a 5 and 6 year old practice that, if they can practice it at all, as opposed to maybe a high school athlete. So be aware, obviously, that it's going to look different for different groups of kids based on their age and based on their sociability and things like that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So here are some activity considerations. And again, these are simply ideas, but and Coach Barker, we can add on to them. So for those that are going to download the deck, the activities don't have really instructions. So hopefully you're all going to get, you'll get a recording of this. But just a real simple activity you can do is called hot potato. And you can see here they are physically distancing themselves. And they're just passing the ball one touch. You can say they have to take 2 touch. And when you say stop, whoever has the last touch, the other person gets the point. So it doesn't have to be used to say stop. It could be a goalkeeper. Maybe you want to work on the goalkeeper's communication. So this is one version. And if you wanted to, you could put down 4 cones, right? And it's almost like their own little 6x6 box if you wanted to. I just don't have them on here, but it's an alternative. And here's another variation of it where it's the same game, except now they're crisscrossing. So now there's a little bit more interference that they have to deal with. Coach Barker, feel free to chime in on any of these activities, but these are just technical activities that 8-year-olds can do, 7-year-olds can do. You just have to find different ways to vary it. For example, it can be right foot pass only, left foot pass only. You must take 2 touches, touch with 1 foot, pass with the other. I mean, you can go on and on. There's lots of pass it and then spin around and then get it back. Right? So there's lots of little physical things you can throw in there as well. Coach Barker, are we good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Just another one that you can do is just you can see 8 players. Now, you're hoping, now you're not going to do this with 6-year-olds, but they are 6 feet apart at least. And you can make this a race, but like one team is trying to pass the ball outside the square, and then the other team is trying to pass the ball kind of inside the square on a diamond. Again, you can make it a race. There's a foul called, for example, if this player here interferes with the pass from here to here, they can then switch roles. So it's a technical activity. No, there's really no pressure of an opponent, but the only pressure is time. So Horseshoes is a lot of fun, and some of you may have seen this game before, but they each have like their own cone, and you can play this in 2s or you can play this in 4s if you want. But so when I play it with younger kids, I usually have the 2 players, they're collectively working together, right? As opposed to competing against each other. So the way the game works is ideally for older kids, 11, 12 and up, all the way up to college players, they chip the ball, and then this player has one touch to get as close to that cone as possible. And then once that's done, then they chip the ball back, and then they get a point. So if you're going to do it with 8-year-olds, instead of chipping it, maybe they got to pass the ball on the ground, and then they have to one touch it and try and get as close to that cone as they can. It's a lot of fun. The kids love it, and it can be. I've done it with 8-year-olds. I've done it with 7-year-olds. Obviously, the distance is a little bit different, but you can do this in 4s as well. So you can have these two are a team. You can have these two over here are a team. So you can have almost 4 to a cone, but the only problem is that you're gonna maybe not be physically distancing appropriately. So again, just a fun little technical game, and they love playing it, and just different variations. Coach Barker?
All good.
Okay. So slide tag is now you see here I got 2 players are too close together here on the ends of the lines, but basically it's 3 teams, and so you have a line, right? And the defender has to slide on the line, right? So they have to slide. They're not allowed to go forward or backwards. So this might be in the phase where, okay, we're not quite as worried about physical distancing because maybe we're a little bit farther into the phases. Like for example, we are here in Indianapolis, and we can play small-sided games and all that. So, but basically how it works is, if this blue player gets into this first zone, it's a star or a point. Now this player here can slide again. They got to slide across. They can't go forward or backwards. So you can have 2 go at a time, and so this player here in the middle has to decide. And if they make it all the way through, then they get 3 points. Then they just dribble down. So you go 3 teams. Each team gets to defend once, and each team gets to attack twice. So it's a fun little game. We do this in our urban soccer diploma. The kids really love it, and they have a lot of fun with it. So soccer, tennis, no really difference from what you normally play, except you'll see here that they really have a defined space that they must stay in. So, but these 2 are teammates. So the 2 on the top are teammates, and the 2 on the bottom are teammates. So they're doubles, but they're in a single box. So you can just play soccer, tennis rules. You can, whatever rules you want to come up with, you can, maybe they got to chip it from the back line if they're advanced players. If they're younger players like 9 and 10, maybe they just got to punt the ball up in the air, and maybe they're allowed 1 bounce. Maybe they're allowed 2 bounces. So it's just like the normal game of tennis. And it's the only difference is that you have their own little individual space. So obviously this would be 4 kids. You could have 8. You can have another 4 kids, to the right of them, another 4. So you can almost do it with your whole team. Foursquare is an old school playground game that I hated it, but because I always lost. But so you have a royalty box, and it's very similar to how we played as kids. Ball gets played, and if this player, this player here on the left-hand side at the bottom kind of serves the ball into this box, and then it goes out, then this player obviously, then everything rotates. But you're trying to get this player out, right? And when that happens, and this player here, the lower right, rotates and becomes queen or king, depending on what you're doing. Tic Tac Toe. It's a fun little game. You can play this with even 8-year-olds. 9-year-olds, but I'm showing an older age example. Now, this does require a lot of cones, or you don't have to use cones. You can use old towels and vests and bibs and whatever. But basically, these two are on a team, and these two are on a team. So they go one at a time. So maybe they do rock, paper, scissors, physically a distance away from each other to see who goes first. So the red player serves the ball. All the squares are 6 by 6. It's very similar to horseshoes, where they get one touch to receive it and keep it in the square. If they do, then they get one of these markers, and the markers could be cones or whatever, and then they put their marker in that square. So they're trying to get tic tac toe, just like the game. So then when the red team goes, the blue team gets to go, and then the red team gets to go again. So obviously, if you only use one ball, then the player here at the end just simply gives it back to them. You just keep playing until you either have tic tac toe or you have a cat game, and then if that happens, then the players switch roles. So you can do this with balls on the ground. It's a very similar idea. They just have to play it on the ground. My rule is that you can't stop it. You have to touch it, right? You have to, you can't trap it. So again, there's lots of variations you can do with this. Coach Parker, feel free, by the way, anytime to interrupt. So you can see here, this is just 4 kids. Now, if you have more than 4 kids, then you're going to have to make more. But if, let's say, you only have 6 kids of practice, well, then maybe you could have, 3 kids on a team, and then they can all just kind of take turns. So just something to think about. So this activity is definitely for advanced players. It is more in line when we're kind of getting actually, again, further along in our phases when we return to play. But I just call it pick the lock. So you have 2 teams, and the goalkeeper always serves the ball. They always serve the balls. So they go at the same time. So it starts with the goalkeeper distributes. The red team has to pass between everybody. They can't be offside, but then they're trying to get behind the blues and play it in the box and score 1 touch. You can say they have to score 1 touch. The blues, though, while the reds are trying to build up, they can pass their ball around and try and hit the reds' ball, right? So then that would be round 1. Round 2, another ball comes out from each goalkeeper. So now the blues have 2 balls. And then it's the second time for the red. And then when the blues come in, then you go again. The blues have 3 balls going at one time. So imagine you got 3 balls going, but the reds only have 1, right? So, but it's their 3rd round or their 3rd try. So I usually give each team 5 attempts, and then they switch sides. So it's a lot of fun.
So Vince, I'm just, John Fitzgerald asked me to remind people, please feel free, if you have questions about anything related to LIJSL and getting back to play, or coaching questions for Vince and I, we're going to kind of wrap here in about 5-6 minutes and then turn it over to you, the audience. Yep. And one of the things that just occurs to me, these are quite fundamental activities we might use in the National Youth License more commonly with our 6, 8s, and 10s. But if you're in a world with 14, 15-year-olds, these types of activities at a high level of complexity with some sophistication and technical challenge, for example, horseshoes, chipping it and controlling it within 1 meter of the cone, these become really good technical trainings when you can't get into competitive opposed training. So I know this looks like National Youth License kiddie stuff, but this might be some of our reality for our older senior players initially.
Yeah. I mean, and horseshoes, by the way, I got them from Bobby Clark from the University of Notre Dame. He used to do it with his men's soccer team, and they loved it. So and they love the challenges. I think, Coach Parker, we just have one left, and this is the one we did the other day. So now we're really back, we're kind of back. And now maybe we're ready to kind of play against each other. But the one thing you don't want to do is shock their system. So you need to kind of reacclimate them. You almost have to kind of do a preseason, if you will, physically, because maybe they've lost some aerobic, strength. So what I have here is a setup, and this is 26 kids. So you have 4 fields, and they're in teams of 3, but you have 4 distinctive games. So game 1, it's 3v3. The space is about 25 by 30, but the way they play, they can play normally, but if they get 4 passes and then they score, they get 5. If they get 4 passes and they don't score, they get nothing, right? So the passes only count if they score a goal. So it is, it's 3v3. You're going to go for about 3 minutes. If you go 4 or 5, they're going to tank, and then they just keep playing. Game 2 is on the larger goals. You have goalkeepers. The balls always come from the goalkeepers, and it's basically just a 3v3 game. Game 3, where you have 2v2, but then each team has a sub, and the subs, they're given a task, like they got to juggle 10 times, or they got to juggle their age if they're little, excuse me, or they got to juggle 50 times. So let's say they do that, and then the ball goes out, then they go in for somebody, right? And that player goes out. So it's 2v2, it's in a tight space, and it's meant to kind of work on, and by the way, these all work on different energy systems that players need. So this one here, it's offset goals. So I apologize, this goal is kind of hidden behind this little text box. So the goals are offset. If the Reds score in this goal, then they tell the blue team, hey, put the goal in the middle. So they get rewarded, and then the blue team has to move the goal in the middle. So now the Reds have more space to kind of create and score. So the way you rotate is the Reds are on the inside, so they always go kind of counterclockwise. And then the Blues are on the outside, and they go clockwise. So it's a lot of fun. I've played all these games. I've done the offset goal game. They love it because just the competition and just the idea that we made the other team move their goal. So, oh, and then I forgot. This is really key. So you're going to play 3 4-minute games, and then after the first round, they just walk, right? They just walk to the new field. So the Reds just simply walk, and the Blues walk the other way. So then when they get back to round 2, so they'll play the game a second time. Now they're going to jog from field to field. And then when they get to round 3, so the third time they play this game, then when they go to the next game, now it's more of a run. So you're kind of building them up. You're working a little bit of fitness. You're not shocking their system too much. And another thing too, if you want to kind of ease them into it, maybe you don't play small-sided, but you play 7v7, 8v8, 9v9, where they have a little more space. They're not sprinting as much. They're jogging and maybe walking a little bit more. So that's another thing that you can consider doing. So, Coach Barker, should I go to the gamification? I think we're good here. I think we're good.
I think we probably should leave the gamification for now. But
Yep.
Just a couple of things about this one, Vince, if you can leave it up.
Yep.
Sorry.
I was going to show the
just real quick. Obviously, this
Yep.
shows 26 players. We would still recommend if you had 12, you set it up, and obviously you just have 2 games going, but lots of variation, and it's kind of exciting for them to know they're going to get a different activity quickly and very quickly, because Vince and I talked about this the other day. Back in the day, Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson would come into pre-season and they do fitness testing right away. They'd break the players down physically, and then they'd be very beaten up for the next week or so of pre-season. So they found that the physical testing actually was hugely counterproductive. You may have kids who live in suburban areas, they've got outdoor space at home, and then other kids who've been in apartments and not been able to access the outdoors as much. So you can't reasonably expect, in most cases, equal levels of physical fitness. But we would highly recommend, don't go into physical testing and running and beep tests and yo-yo tests. Let them get their soccer feet back under them and in these small group activities. So we are very, very clear on that we want to go back to soccer first, then we'll worry about competition and we'll worry about travel and we'll worry about certainly physical fitness, but get them back into the soccer environment.
Yeah. Very good. I just wanted to show VoiceThread just so people kind of get an idea. So basically what it is, it's just it's a PDF, it's a PowerPoint, and I'll just show you this one that I did for the club I moonlight for. So it's free. There's no charge.
Hello, my name is Vince, and
I'm narrating this little diagram. But here, and what you do is you send out the link to the kids. The kids get this, they hear your voice or they see you on camera, and they can actually video themselves recording a comment. So right now, if I wanted to record, hey, Coach Vince, I would choose playing it to the number 4 option, because that's going to get us to goal quicker. And then they just hit stop recording, and then you get a prompt on your end as a coach that they did. Record. That's it. So I just wanted to show that, Coach Barker. I thought if anyone has not seen VoiceThread, it really is you found this, by the way, right? And it really is a wonderful little program. So I'm good. So I think we stop sharing our screen. I'm not hearing you, Coach.
All right. I don't know if Peyton and Ronan and John are going to join us right now. Just a couple of questions came in, Vince, about pretty robust U17s. What do you do with them? I suggested a couple of ideas. Be very clear on the groupings initially. Good use of boundaries, and make it competitive, but have rounds. So it's a 5-minute game, 5-minute challenge. Vince is the winner. Do it again. Then John is engaged again to try to win. Ronan's engaged. I thought that was possible. One colleague asked, do players and coaches wear face masks in these drills? The recommendations that we're getting from CDC as we go back through the phases is the coaches are still recommended to wear some sort of face covering. But I have not seen anything where they're asking athletes to wear a face covering. So I'm not aware of that being a requirement as of now.
Yes.
Alex? Oh, okay, Alex, yes. So
Match day.
colleague Alex asked about match day. So Alex, off our website, the match day links are there. Tomorrow we have a match analysis one at 11 a.m. Central, and then we have a college coaching one at 3 p.m. Central. They're free to register. They're 15 to 30-minute pop-up webinars. We've done over 100, and they're all recorded, so you can go to the website now and scale through ones you might want to watch and refresh on. And we plan on doing these indefinitely, so we'd love to see people. We like people live. It makes it more fun for us.
Yeah, that's good. A couple other questions have come in that aren't through the chat box there. So Ian and Vince, the Bundesliga has been up and going for a few weeks. What are your thoughts on an assignment to watch a match or portion of one, and what could some of the assignments be?
Go ahead. You answer, I'll fill in if needed.
So I think it's a great question because it's so nice to have some live soccer. Of course, you could use a YouTube game that all the kids could access to. I think it's a good process. For example, what I would do is I'd say, let's watch the first half of Bayern Munich Dortmund, but I want you to analyze, or whatever the task is, minute 15 to 30. So I wouldn't give them, I think 45 minutes is too much for some kids to ask them. So I'd pick a chunk of the game, and the chunk at the time would be how much time you think they'll concentrate. I would probably be inclined to say you'll overestimate. So I might give it, like I say, a 15-minute window. And then one of the things I might do is say, pick a player that you think plays in your position. So maybe at the beginning of the game when they put the schematic up, you think you play number 6, and so you pick the number 6 for Bayern, and then give me what Vince would call glows and grows. So what did you think about that number 6's positive performance, and what things would you like to have seen them improve, or what could they do better? So make it very personal for each player, because if it's kind of a generic question, you're going to get perhaps 18 similar answers. So I would make it a functional kind of opportunity.
Yeah. Make it to where they're almost like tracking and, almost like taking statistics, if you will. So, yeah. Adrian.
I've got a question here. So you guys in your part of the country, you're further along in your return to action than we are.
We're in the mid-best. That's why.
Yeah. How have you found, the levels of anxiety in the players as they get back to training? What has it been like, for those kids and you guys?
With our club, the club I moonlight for, I asked the coaches, and they said that the kids have just been really excited, but they've almost had to like curb their excitement, right? And so it's almost like they're too excited, and but it's been positive. They are still a little anxious and apprehensive, and just because that's been their world for the past 2 months. So that's what I'm hearing from the club.
Yeah, my thoughts is that most parents and players are very excited to get back, because right now they're in the managed environment of an environment they trust. So they're with their club and they're not interacting with another club. I think when we get to the level of now you've got to travel across town and play somebody else, I think anxiety levels would potentially go up. But this is my soapbox, and then I promise I will get off of it. I think all of the athletes are very aware that COVID's been going on. When they come back to the field, I would like us to celebrate seeing them. Yep. And go straight into whatever the training looks like. And it's going to look a little different. But one of the things I would do is I would say, okay, we're going to train twice this week, twice next week. We're going to play small-sided games, or we're going to do technical training. And I would be extra vigilant in giving them a schedule and a schema. And I wouldn't talk about COVID, because they've had enough of it. And so for me, it's a great opportunity for us as coaches, regardless of what our training profession is and what we're doing in our professional lives, to get back into that environment and give, to the best of our ability, soccer back to the kids. So I would say in general, the angst is there, probably more on the part of the parents and probably the coaches. And that speaks to Vince's point that be they 5-year-olds or rambunctious 17-year-olds, part of your challenge will be to remind them of the physical distancing, because after 45 minutes they might feel very comfortable and kind of lapse.
Yeah, just to follow up, do you feel that the anxiety and the angst that the parents are feeling probably transfers to the kids? So is it part of the parents' job to not hide it, but kind of understand that everything is going to be okay, and if they feel that and show that to the kids, then that transmits to them and it makes it easier for that transition? Do you feel that?
Yeah, I think this is something we were having before COVID, right? A lot of research talks about background anger and background anxiety. So the parents or the guardians and the coaches, we have an amazing responsibility and opportunity to frame the child's experience. But the first time that a parent interrupts the training to complain, or the first time a parent sues the coach or the club, that's only going to heighten this type of thing. So if the parents care about their children and they're concerned, don't send them back. And don't worry if you miss the tryout or you don't make the team this year, because your kid's safety and your belief in that is greater. But at the point where parents bring them back, coaches, we give good information, but we can't pander to the parents for the 70 minutes of the session. We've got a responsibility to the kids. But I agree with you, Ronan. There is a huge challenge if the parents and the coaches are not supportive of each other.
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat box. how much should we be concerned about contact during play? I mean, so the 3v3 little example I showed at the very end, that wouldn't happen unless the governor, our government, said you're all clear, right? So I mean, obviously we don't. I mean, to me, we don't know. I mean, we don't know what what's going to be. But obviously, I think the more cognizant you are of keeping them spaced out as much as you can. But like for example, the High School State Association has informed all high school coaches that we can start July 1, no restrictions. So, but as a coaching staff, we talked about that, and we're like, well, we're not just going to throw them out there and let them play. We're going to do some technical work with them. We're going to just start weaning them in a little bit. So it's a great question. I wish I had a better answer, but for me, I think you just got to go by your
Yeah. So
local and county
Vince
guidelines.
and I are not medical professionals, nor government or state employees in this regard. But back in the day before COVID, if a player had a head injury, we would train to err on the side of caution.
Yep.
So that's for me number one, right? There is nothing more important than the kid's safety. Kika asked a question about bodies in motion. So my understanding is that part of the challenge is when things get airborne, and what is the challenge of heavy breathing and maybe sweat, and maybe a player's running and he or she spits without intent, but it gets airborne. So I absolutely agree with, or I'm concerned with Kika, that motion is a challenge too. If we're in a state where all the healthcare professionals suggest that contact is not possible or not appropriate, how terrible would it be if we took a half a season, a couple of months off from competitive travel, all the other things we used to, and just make it about improving the team, and maybe just make it about improving technique? I know that doesn't satisfy the parent group necessarily, and the kids will get a little bit bored at times. So maybe you have to change some things. But there is the opportunity here, if you're in a lockdown situation, to make it a time for technical development in the social setting, as opposed to having to travel all around the country playing competitive games. So again, the challenge, of course, is when you look across a state line and they're doing it differently, and you want what the other person has. But I would trust the best healthcare professionals you have in your community.
Yeah.
Point come in about what we're talking about, what players can do, right? That's been much of our focus. And as coaches, because coaches are the ones who are on this call feasibly, what are some things that you would suggest about continuing to grow and develop as a coach during this time? In other words, maybe what are you doing, Ian and Vince? And do either of you have favorite books, articles, or presentations?
Yeah, well, I can tell you right now, I'm doing my master's right now, and it's killing me. But that's been really good for me. But yeah, books, absolutely. I've read some really good books. I've got some right here. So Coach Parker, if you want, I'll just pull mine up. But and then we can talk about some shows. We actually did a whole show, match day, on books and shows to kind of binge. It's a binge watch. So yeah, I think just self growth and your own personal, learn, read, take this time. I heard a lot of coaches have been doing that, right? Just taking time, reflecting on themselves, rewriting their philosophy, coming up with a new educational plan for themselves, or personal development plan. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing. So, Coach Parker?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, this is more of just a personal response. Vince and I have both had more work during this period because we've been quite active in the online space. But we've had the opportunity not only to deliver, but also to participate and be students. So that's been helpful. Caught up with some reading, caught up with some cleaning up files and updating content. So we probably can all relate to the fact that we've got into the beginning of seasons, and halfway through, we don't have our curriculum right, or we need to change it. So there is an opportunity to refresh. And then just one very personal thing. We broke from the office environment on March the 17th. And it was an indefinite period. So I think we all went a bit aggressive right away with, go for a run and do all these different things. And then it became clear it was going to go longer. And so I've been quite responsible in chunking my time. So I've been looking at 7 to 14-day windows of challenge. So if you've ever done one of those sort of 30-day ab workouts on the computer on YouTube, that's how I've been doing it. So I'm not worried if it's going to be July 1 or August 1. I'm just chunking my preparation. And when they say 2 weeks from now you're going, I'll be ready to go. So it's been an issue of self-improvement and preparation.
Yeah, and I've worked from home for the past 7 years, so I'm used to this, right? So I've learned how to create a structure, create a routine. The only thing I can't do now is go to Starbucks and work, right, when I'm tired of looking at my dogs all day. But yeah, I think just creating a structure for yourself, just like we're asking the kids to do, right? Have a routine, and then maybe you change your routine a little bit. But by the way, here's some books. And just so you know, I've been reading a lot of non-soccer books because sometimes I got to put the ball away. I just do in my mind. But for coaching, this is a great one called Effective Modern Coaching by Miles Downey. It's one of those books I couldn't highlight enough in here, and it's wonderful. This is my boss's book. So it's really good, by The Legacy of the All Blacks by Steve Kerr, right? And then good luck finding this one. This is the Holy Grail of games and exercises. You can find it on eBay, I guess, for about $500. So I dug it out. That's another thing I did during this period is I'm going to go to my storage unit and find some of these old books. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing, and just working on my master's degree. So.
And one last plug here, John and Ronan. Currently, all of your attendees, all of your coaches can become members of United Soccer Coaches 100% free. You just go to the website, find the free login, and they'll give you 30 days free. And right now, everything that we have, all of our online courses, there's about 12, 13 of them, are completely free. And then the online resource library, which has a lot of convention videos and lesson plans, all of that is completely free. So right before people get full-blown going, if they want content, if they want more soccer type content, or they want something on diversity, or they want something on countering sexual assault, all of that content is free if your coaches sign up as a free member for 30 days.
Very good.
Also, become a member. I just got mine in the mail.
Yep.
So that could give you something to do to take up some time as well.
Guys, are you back to playing games yet?
No.
Not yet. Adrian is just asking a question about when players are on the sidelines, should they be wearing masks? Just didn't know if you were that far advanced just yet.
Yeah.
No,
It's a great question.
my feeling is if we are in an athletic setting of training or competition and we're asking athletes to wear the masks, we've gone back too soon. And so I really don't feel, and again, I'm no expert, so please, don't quote me, but I would not, if the recommendation was that my bench players not only had to stay physically distant, but also had to wear masks before they could enter the, while they're out, then I would say we've come back too soon. So I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I would shut the program down happily before I did that.
Okay. When you were doing your Zoom meetings with your players, when we're coaching, we always look for that nonverbal communication with our players, as to how they're feeling, and if they're not playing particularly well, excuse me, you can always, pull them aside for an individual chat to see, if there's something going on that you can maybe help them with. When you were doing your Zoom meetings, did you, what cues? It's obviously a little bit more difficult, I think, than in person when you're at training.
Yeah.
But what were some of the things you would look for, or you would see that we could maybe use when we have the Zoom meetings with our players? And how do you initiate then that one-on-one, virtual conversation one-on-one? How would you do that? Did you do that?
So really quickly, because of the time, we still have about 88, 89% of the attendees that started on, which means that a few have had to go out and walk the dog and have dinner, and a couple gave up on us, which is 100% fine. I'm very grateful that we have 88, 89%. But we have to honor their time, right? So the first thing with the kids is make it 15 minutes, don't make it 30 minutes or an hour. I mean, God bless all of you guys, but you're adults. And so probably go less is best. Ask them to have their cameras on, because you pick up on the facial cues.
Yep.
I think it makes it more social. Definitely, that's a good, nice scarf, Vince. What's that about? John, that's a heck of a trophy room. What's going on there? Ronan, your sign's fallen over. And Ian, you've got a Scrabble problem. So that personalizes it. And obviously a room of 18, you can't, in this tiny little box, you can't attend to it. So then it becomes potentially, you give up an hour and a half to give 3 groups, 4 groups, 20 minutes of more intimate. And then maybe the last one of the week is a Kahoot, and all 18 come in and you give prizes out. But I think there are strategies, but remembering that they probably don't love this. So make them love it for the 15, 20 minutes. Don't make them suffer it for the hour and a half.
Yeah, and it's with the high school team. We just had one Sunday, and it was just like creating a lesson plan. All right, we're going to do this activity. So we did an icebreaker. Then we had like, okay, and we actually shared our screen. We sent them a Google Doc, and they filled in, for example, what they think. The school is called Shortridge High School. What should a Shortridge High School player be, right? And so they actually typed them in. And then we actually we did breakout rooms in Zoom. And then I took a group, and then we talked about what a Shortridge High School player looks like, right? So in other words, it's just having activities planned. But Google Docs are wonderful because you can actually just put the link in the chat box. They can click on it, they can have it, and you can see it in real time, like when they're typing. So yeah, it's just planning activities, Kahoots, Mentimeters, and then yeah, just like in a classroom, when you see the eyes are drifting, and yeah, it's just time to change it up. So
All right, well, that's excellent. And there is a question from Coach Juan, which is beneficial for the group. He's actually asking the league, will there be grassroots coaching courses to get to the next level? And when will they be in person or online? So to Coach Juan and everyone else listening, the answer is yes, there will be. Once we're allowed, and understand Vince and Ian are in a different part of the country. I know they said that, but make sure we're understanding that. Here in New York, we have not loosened the restrictions as much as where they are yet. But once they are, we will definitely be offering them again through Long Island Junior Soccer League, doing the United Soccer Coaches curriculum. And we're hoping to have Vince and Ian back on Long Island in the future to do some courses with us.
get some bagels.
Get some bagels and maybe a beer. But thank you to everybody for staying on with us. Vince and Ian, thank you for doing a terrific presentation. I think that all the coaches see that even though you two are 2 of the top educators in the country, that you're very human, you're very approachable, and you break things down to the nth degree that, and Ian, you said it, you can use a lot of the things that Vince was talking about at the beginning with your younger teams. We can also use it with our older teams, changing our restrictions. But thank you very much for taking the time and spending it with us.
Well, Steve and Peyton are not on the screen, but thank you to Steve and Peyton for the organization, and then of course for Ronan and John for hosting. So it's a real pleasure. We like doing these things. This doesn't feel like work. This feels like being in a community of coaches. So I'm very grateful, and I hope we honored most people's time.
Thanks, guys. Everybody, don't forget you can download the handouts for tonight, and also this webinar is recorded and available on the LIJ website, so if you want to go in there and take a look at it again. Ian and Vince, as always, a pleasure and some very good information. John, thank you for
Thank you.
thanks for hosting tonight and putting this together. Everybody, please stay safe and keep an eye out for some future webinars as part of Long Island Junior Soccer League Soccer at Home initiative. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of the evening. Thank you, guys.
God bless
Thank you,
everyone.
John. Thank you, Ronan. Thank you, everybody.